Sausijzenbroodjes or Dutch sausage rolls are everywhere in the Netherlands. School cafeterias, concession stands at sporting events, even department stores will sell them at their food counter. For me, it is a quick snack on my way to the gate at the airport. However, the best ones are found at bakeries. They are flaky on the outside, have nicely spiced meat on the inside. So that is what we'll be making today. Hi, I'm Tuan and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking food from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies, such as Indonesia. Today, we'll be making sausijzenbroodjes, or Dutch sausage rolls. And even though the name is sausage roll, it really has just ground meat on the inside, not really a sausage. For us, it is made with beef, but the ones you can find in the stores may have a mixture of pork and beef in them. It is this spicy, flavorful meat wrapped in this deliciously flaky puff pastry. It's pretty easy to make, and I'll actually be making quite a large batch today because they freeze really well and make for a quick snack when you don't have anything else. To make sausijzenbroodjes, you will need 2 eggs, 8 tablespoons or half a cup of breadcrumbs, 4 tablespoons of mayo, some milk, 1 or 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons of sambal oelek, some freshly grated nutmeg, salt and pepper to taste. You'll need 1 kilo of ground meat. I'm using all ground beef, but you can use ground pork or a mixture of ground beef and ground pork, which is probably the most traditional way of making it. And of course, you'll also need puff pastry. I put the beef in a really large bowl because I'm going to use this to mix everything together, and this way I don't make a mess. First, I'm going to grate my nutmeg. I need approximately 2 teaspoons. I'm going to do it over a little bowl and then measure it out. 1. Oh, not quite. I need a little bit more. I've grated some more nutmeg so I can get my full 2nd teaspoon. Sambal oelek. Seems like a lot, but trust me, it will taste delicious. Mayo. And my breadcrumbs. Some salt and pepper to taste. Now we get to do the fun thing. I put on some gloves to make sure my hands don't get dirty and I also don't contaminate the beef. Sausijzenbroodjes are one of those typical snacks I will eat at Schiphol Airport as I am walking to the gate, because you get them at the concession stand on a little paper plate and they're pretty easy to eat while you're walking around, and they are very tasty and quite filling because they're rather large at the airport. Make sure that you get everything mixed through thoroughly. You don't want to have one bite with a ton of sambal in it or one bite with a ton of the nutmeg in it. You can definitely smell the nutmeg while you're mixing this, and to me it's such a great smell. This is definitely a nutmeg forward recipe on the beef side. Normally you just put a tiny little bit of freshly grated nutmeg, but here we have 2 full teaspoons in there. Here we go. I think I did a pretty good job. So now I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge to kind of rest for probably about an hour. The beef has sat in the fridge for an hour and I've taken it out. I've also have a sheet of puff pastry here, which is approximately 10 inches by about 15. So I'm going to cut this into 5 by 5 inch squares, give or take, so that we have 6 out of 1 sheet. And I have taken a few other sheets out already. First, I'm going to measure about, let's see, right there. Oops, move this to the side a little bit. Right there. Okay, and then we're going to roll them. Just like that. All right, I'm going to scoop some of my beef out. I'm using a scoop to kind of make sure that I'm using the same amount of beef in each one of the sausijzenbroodjes. And now what you do is you turn this into a log that is approximately just as long as the piece of pastry is wide. And we're going to do that for all of them. Then I'm going to take my gloves off and fold them over. So if you're making these for, let's say, a birthday party or something, you can actually make them a little bit smaller. You can probably make them about 2.5 inches wide and they become tiny little squares. And that is typically, you know, like at parties served as kind of finger food. So that's another thing that you can do. So as you can see, I am placing them approximately at about 1/3 of the height of the sheet of pastry, because we're going to fold this over and we need to make sure that this side has enough space to fold over. And then what we're going to do is crimp them with a fork, let them sit in the fridge to let the dough rest, brush some egg wash on top of it, and then we're popping them in the oven. So with a pastry brush, I'm going to wet this edge over here, because that way it acts as a glue when I fold the other side over and I crimp them together. And we're using cold water because, again, you want to keep puff pastry as cool as possible. I'm going to turn it around so that the camera can see it. Fold it over. I always just push it with my fingers and then I will go and grab my fork in a moment. Pull it over, push it together. It's okay to push on this edge because we're going to crimp it together with the fork, so it won't really poof up anyway, and it doesn't have to. You want the rest of it. With a fork, just make sure that this is all sealed. Traditionally, the sides of these are left open. They aren't completely sealed. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. I'm just going to put them on a cookie sheet right now, put them in the fridge for probably about 10-15 minutes. So now it's time to make the egg wash, because a typical sausijzenbroodje has a nice glossy top. So what I do is I have 2 eggs, about 1.5 tablespoons of milk. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt. And now whisk this together, trying not to make a mess. So make sure there's some space between all of the sausijzenbroodjes, and then put a nice coating of egg wash on top of each of them. They're going to go in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And what I typically do is turn them around in the oven halfway through, just to make sure that they all get browned evenly, because our oven doesn't necessarily have the most even heating. So this way we make sure that there isn't one side that is browner than the other. And of course, you also need to make sure that the meat is all the way cooked through. For beef, that's a little bit easier. If you're using a pork and beef mixture, you might want to take a meat thermometer or instant read thermometer to make sure that the temperature is correct. And now they go into the oven. All right, the first batch of sausijzenbroodjes is out of the oven. They look great, golden brown, and when you tap them, you can hear that they are very crispy on the outside. I'm going to pick this one to eat. Looking forward to it. Ooh, hear that? That sounds great. So take a look inside. You can see the meat is fully cooked. You can see the layers on the top. Eet smakelijk. That flaky outside, that is such a buttery pastry, and on the inside, this ground beef with just a hint of heat from the sambal and that very distinct flavor of nutmeg through it. It is a great combination. I've made a big batch of sausijzenbroodjes today. As a matter of fact, we made a total of 17. So we've eaten a few. The rest are going to go in the freezer until we want them for lunch, or sometimes a snack at night. When we want to have them for lunch, we typically put them in the fridge the night before so they have time to thaw, and then we pop them in the oven at 350 degrees until they're all the way warmed through. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.